What if I told you Bill Gates got lucky? Now, before you judge me, hear me out. A school by the name of Lakeside exists in Seattle. That school back then, we're talking of 1960s now, had one of the world's most advanced computers. UN says in 1968 there were around 304 million kids or people who were of the age group that they should have gone to high school. Of this 304 million people, 100,000 were in Seattle area. Of these 100,000, 300 of them went to the Lakeside School. Bill Gates happened to be one of them. Odds of 1 in a million. Now, say for example, if Bill Gates were born in India or Africa or any other place for that matter, which didn't have access to that advanced computer, he wouldn't have got the platform. But yes, did all the 300 kids make it big in life, or particularly in the computing world? No. It was Bill Gates' will, passion, determination that propelled him. But then we can't deny the fact that the platform was given to him. Yes, he did get lucky when he got access to that school. Now, Luck has got one more sibling by the name of Risk. But before we hear the stories of these two siblings, Luck and Risk, uh, let's understand why are we discussing this topic in the first place, psychology of money. Hi, my name is Subhash, and in today's episode I want to discuss about a book, The Psychology of Money. This is a fascinating book, and every time I read it there's something new for me to take away from it, and I want to share my learnings with you today. So before I talk more about it, let's try to understand, why do we want to know about money? What is about wealth that we want to know that drives us? Then people say that people want to be wealthier because it makes them happier. But happiness is a subjective term. Everyone's definition of happiness is different. The common denominator for happiness is freedom. That's something we all crave. Like the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want to today is freedom. The ability that you do what you want to do, with whom you want to do, for how long you want to do, is priceless. This is what wealth gives you. Think of an example like if you are in a workplace where you have a horrible boss and a horrible company culture and you're still sticking with it, and oh, you're asked why you are there because you say that we have to pay the bills at the end of the month, so I have to stick with it. But now think about a scenario where you have 6 to 8 months of savings in bank and you still have a horrible boss. You say, I quit. You come home, you relax, you take some time off, and you start looking for new jobs. And in the next 4 to 5 months, you will find a new job and will start a new place. So, this freedom that you're choosing who you want to work with came because you had that leverage of money. So, it's a very important thing to understand. And I would like to explain it with one more example of Derek Sivers. Derek Sivers, a successful entrepreneur, while he was when he became rich, his friend asked him that, "Tell me about the time you sold your company." So he said, "Well, the story goes like when I was 22, I was working and I was getting a minimum wage of 22,000 USDs per annum, and I calculated my monthly expenses, and on the basis of that, I was able to save around $800 per month, and I did that for 2 years. So at the end of 24 months, I had around 12 to 14,000 with me, and that's when I quit my job. I quit my job and I started my gig as a musician, and I got a couple of shows every week and made some money here and there, and that's when I get going." He said, "No, no, no. Tell me of the time when you sold your company and you actually made it rich." I said, "Oh no, that didn't make any difference to my life. The difference was made when I was 22 and I quit my job." An important lesson in there for us. So, some people may argue here that we love what we do. Of course, you love what you do. But when you don't have control over your time, you tend to hate even the things that you love doing. Because in today's world, particularly when we have to make decisions, process data, and make some important decisions, so our mind is constantly working, even if we are not at work, even if we are with friends doing dishes, making chores, our mind is constantly thinking about it. Back in the days, it was easy when tangible physical labor was involved. Once you go back home, so you can completely shut it off. But now let's bring in the story that we were discussing earlier of luck and risk. We did see that how Bill Gates got lucky. But in that class of 300, by the name of Kent, and in Bill Gates' own word, he would have been Microsoft's co founder. Equally smart, a prodigy, and uh, like an amazing brain about computer. But Kent couldn't graduate high school. He lost his life in a mountaineering accident. Now think about it. The odds of people losing their life in a mountaineering accident in the US is again 1 in a million. 3 dozen people lose their lives in mountaineering accidents. Kent happened to be one of the unlucky ones. So, as I was mentioning, luck and risk are siblings. Robert Skiller, a Nobel laureate, he that what is it about money that you want to know that we don't know? He says the exact role of luck in someone's financial success. And it is so accurate. If I tell you that there are 1 billion investors in the world, and of those 1 billion investors, at least 10 of them are going to be billionaires, would you agree to that? You would say, yeah, I agree to that, yeah. But when I say, can you point out to their face exactly which 10 billionaires are going to make it to billionaires, being billionaires? You can't. No one can. And since it is so hard to quantify luck, and since it is considered as rude to owe someone success as being lucky, we tend to omit the part of discussing about luck and all. But we can't deny the fact that luck does play a role in someone's financial success or any success for that matter. And on the other side of it, think about the fact that I choose to buy stocks, and the stocks I buy, the money that I invest in, is done after some nice calculations, proper mathematical assumptions, and fact based investment. But a few years on the line, I happen to lose money. The odds of me being successful there was 90%. Yeah. Because I did all my assumptions, my calculations, my everything was in place. My due diligence was done. But I happened to be on the opposite end of the spectrum was there that yeah, you could lose money. Now who decides that? How do you get to know that? No one. It's still like it's something that we can't know. Uh, a similar example comes from entrepreneurial world. When Facebook was offered $1 billion from Yahoo in 2006, Mark Zuckerberg turned it down. He held his guns, and he was praised for it, that he saw the future. And similarly, Yahoo was offered from Microsoft, and Yahoo turned the money down. The founders or the people at Yahoo were blamed that they should have cashed out when they could. So, how do we know who's right? Or what is the lesson in there? It's written there. It's written there. But what we can say, or what our takeaway here is that instead of looking at the extremes, like the super successful or the information we read in news about how a company tanked or the extreme case studies, these are extreme examples. Studying specific riches or studying super specific case studies is dangerous because we don't know exactly what degree of luck or risk was involved in that. What we should do and what we can do here is look at broad patterns and try to understand the similarity in them. If we look at broad patterns and understand similarity in them, it becomes more applicable for us in our life. With this, I move on to the next story that I want to share is about how much money is enough. How do we define what is enough for us? Because if we don't define that, we keep on chasing it. And I want to uh, talk about two stories here. The first story is a billionaire who happened to give a very lavish party on Shelter Island, and in that guest list was an author who wrote the famous book Catch 22. So one of the friends goes to the author and says, the host, a hedge fund manager, he made more money in a day than you made in your lifetime. So he says, yeah, that's true, but he'll never have what I have. I said, what's that? He'll never have enough. And this is such a absolute response, such an accurate response that yeah, he'll never have enough. So what do you mean by enough? How do we define enough? Or how does anyone define enough? But before that, I want to talk about the other story also. This is the story of Rajat Gupta, the ex-CEO of McKinsey. Rajat Gupta was worth 100 million US dollars at his peak. And if you look at 5% returns on an investment of $100 million, you are looking at close to around $600 per hour. You could literally do anything with that money. Rajat Gupta was also on the boards of the most advanced, brilliant companies of the world. One of one of one of them happened to be Goldman Sachs. When he was on the board of directors of Goldman Sachs and the bank was having a turbulent times, he got to know of the fact that Warren Buffett is going to invest in a good chunk of money to get the bank going. So he got the news before the deal was officially closed. He calls up one of his friends and tells him about the deal. His friends buys in a good amount of stock in Goldman Sachs, and after the deal is closed, he sells them off and makes an easy $1 million. And this pattern is repeated multiple times. It becomes a very easy case of SEC for insider trading. Rajat Gupta goes to jail. He loses his name, fame, prestige, everything that he earned all his life. Why? Because he didn't define his enough. Imagine $600 per hour. You could do anything with that money, but still, he went on for more. He didn't define his enough. Now, when I talk about this, it sounds very easy, but when you start to chase something and chase a number particularly, you lose sight. So it is very important to define your goalpost. You have to stop the goalpost from moving. It is something like eating. Even if you love something to eat, you can only take in as per your capacity. If you take in more than that, you tend to vomit. So defining your enough is very important because you can keep on taking risk. You can keep on going after what you want. You don't want to leave on the food on the table. But then not at the cost of your freedom, not at the cost of your happiness, not at the cost of risking your loved ones. So if these things, when you tend to realize that these things are at stake, you should stop taking those risks. You should make content, and this is my enough. It is very tough, particularly with social comparison in place, but this is something we should try to chase and inculcate in our lives. Now, the next story I want to talk about is the story of compounding. In the early 1900s, a Serbian scientist came up with the concept, which today is the most acceptable concept of ice age. In that, he talks about moon and sun and how a hemisphere of Earth is tilted more towards sun, and one hemisphere is tilted away. That causes uh, this ice age like scenarios. But then one Russian scientist did further study into his research and he came, no, no, no. It's not the colder winters actually which caused the cold age, ice age. It's actually the summers were less warm. Now think about it that if the summers are less warm and all the snow from previous winter is not melted, a very thin sheet of snow remains. So it becomes easier the following winter for a newer layer to come on. And if the following summer again, if the heat is not adequate and all the ice is not able to melt, so it becomes easier the following winter again to have an extra sheet of ice on top of it. Years for centuries when we have a ice lake like such a situation. So the important takeaway here is that we don't need tremendous force to create tremendous result. Small efforts done on a continuous basis can yield massive results. Another story comes in from the tech world here. When IBM came up with the first storage in the late 1950s, it was a 3.5 megabyte hard drive. In 1960s, it went up to a few dozen megabytes. In 1970s, 80s, a few hundred megabytes. In 1990s, around 500 megabytes used to be the norm. Today, we have 100 terabytes of storage. Now, if you would have asked even an optimistic person in 1950, they would have said that, okay, yeah, the storage times or 100,000 times maybe. Today, the storage has gone to 30 million times than it was in 1950. So, this catastrophic increase, this tremendous increase is caused because a continuous effort was made daily, day in, on a constant basis. A similar result is seen in Warren Buffett's wealth. A majority of his wealth that he amassed came after his retirement. Because this is how compounding work. You add bit by bit, and you start to see exponential growth in that. So the takeaway here is that if it turns to investing, we should believe in the power of compounding. That's, as some say, is the eighth wonder of the world. And good investing is not about what yields you the highest returns. Good investing is about do on a regular basis and get maximum return in the longest run. Because that's when compounding runs wild. An important lesson in there. The next thing I want to talk about is wealth and richness. How are they two different, and what is exactly wealth and being rich, being wealthy and being rich? So, singer Rihanna, she almost sued her financial advisor when she went bankrupt. And the financial advisor said a very nice line that was it really necessary to tell her that if she spends money on things that she ends up with and not the money? We can laugh at this statement, but this is actually true because when we ask people, they want to be millionaires, and they say that yeah, they want to be a millionaire, but it's actually they want to spend $1 million, which is exactly the opposite of what being a millionaire is. And if we look at another scenario here, a different scenario here, is that if someone is driving a $100,000 car and living in a massive house, we can say that man has got rich because that man has got money. Even although he bought those stuff on debt, but still he has the ability to pay for those monthly installments. We'll call him rich. Wealth is different. Wealth is the income not spent. Now, think about it as someone who goes to gym, who's working out, and then to reward himself consumes extra calories. Now, wealth is the urge to stop yourself from consuming those extra calories. It's not different, and the point that often comes, what's the point then if we were to save? What's the point in earning money anyways? See, there are a couple of things here. One is having wealth gives you the flexibility. Having wealth gives you the freedom and confidence that you require to take risks in life. First. Second, creating about getting more income. Creating wealth is actually about spending less. I'll try to explain it with a nice story here. When we look at the situation in 1970s, when news reports and speculations were there that the world is going to run out of oil because we were consuming oil at such a massive scale. But did we run out of oil? No. And this has got nothing to do with we developed more efficient ways of extracting oil. Of course, we did. But the main difference was made because our vehicles, our cars, our factories, our homes became more energy efficient. So we were able to save more money and develop energy wealth. The production remained more or less the same. So, uh, a huge lesson in there for our financial goals that generating wealth has got nothing to do with the income that you earn. It has got to do with how efficient are you in saving, how efficient are you in spending that. And also, when people ask why to save, it is because you plan for the not planned. Everything that you plan can go not as planned. A very interesting story comes in from World War, the Battle of Stalingrad. German battle tanks were waiting to cruise in, and of the 120 tanks deployed, only 10 to actually work. And it was found that it was mice who was causing the trouble and not letting the tanks to go in. Even the most advanced German engineers wouldn't have thought that it would be mice who would be causing a tank not to work, not to go. Because these things went in unplanned, these things you couldn't think of, but you still have to have a buffer for those unplanned expenses, unplanned things. We don't need a specific reason to save. We want to save room for error. Now, towards the end of it, I want to talk about what is in it for you and me. So, see, all the pundits, all the advisors, all the media reports, all the news articles, whatever they say, they don't, they say in generalized stuff. But we have to understand where we stand. What are our financial goals? What is our financial objective? The reason I say so is that think about it. New York Times wrote an article that the workers in China were exploited for low wages. A team went on there to interview those workers. So one of the nephews of a lady working in that factory under those harsh conditions, he said that our conditions are bad, but bad in comparison of what? My aunt, before she was working here, worked as a prostitute. She sold her body for few pennies. Here, she's selling her time for few dollars to a capitalist boss. So actually for her, it's a better deal. So the important thing to understand here is that we have to understand where we are coming from, where we stand. Because someone who grew up in the US in 1940s, after the World War, his worldview about finances, about saving, about stocks is going to be completely different than someone who grew up in Japan or Germany in that period of time, when the economy was completely shaken. Germany couldn't even produce food enough for his people. So we have to be very clear on what our position is, where we stand. And with that, I want to sum up today's discussion with the summary that freedom is the highest dividend that money pays. When we try to inculcate financial habits, we should look at broad patterns instead of going for the extremes because we don't know the effect luck and risk had in it. Defining our enough is very important. We should leverage the magic of compounding. Being rich and wealthy are very different. We should always leave room for error, and we should not be looking for reasons to save. And lastly, we should understand what's best for us. Thank you. And that's not all from the book. There are going to be more learnings, which I'll be sharing in further videos. But yeah, for today, that's all. Thank you.